Now, weirdly, when I do gigs, Robbie Williams is like a construct, is like a superhero that my name's Robert Williams. It's not Robbie Williams. Robbie Williams gets on stage. Robert Williams raises his kids. And these days, what happens is, like, I did Hyde Park last year. And I'm like, I get on stage and I never know if he's going to turn up or I'm going to have to do it myself.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Talent Takes Practice, a podcast looking at what it takes to make it to the top of your chosen field and how we can use that experience to help youngsters maximise their own talents, whatever those talents may be. Joining us today, one of the UK's most successful singer-songwriters and popular entertainers of all time. He became a famous member of Take That in the 1990s, then achieved greater success with his solo career, having 7 UK number one singles. 11 out of his 12 albums reached number one in the UK charts. In 2006, he entered the Guinness Book of World Records for selling 1.6 million tickets of his Close Encounters tour in a single day. That's quite incredible. Roberto, how are you, mate?
I'm very, very well. We're going to entertain you today, Matthew.
Love it. Love it. Are you a big fan of him?
Massive, yeah. He's been to my house. We've played football in the back garden. I've been to his concerts. Wow. The man is a unbelievable entertainer.
Favourite song?
My wedding song, our first song, was She's the One.
I'm really excited about this one, mate. I really am.
To be fair, have you recovered, though? Because this is the day after you've been absolutely taken apart on Twitter by Piers Morgan. Have you recovered? Are you going to be all right, in a good mindset?
Hey, listen. So for the people listening in who don't read the Sunday Times, I wrote a masterly column about what I call the Piers Morganisation of popular culture. This is a television presenter who doesn't let his guests get a chance to speak. He hammers them, creates, I think, a lot of division. I don't like it. It's not just about him. It's about a lot of polarisation in society today. So I obviously wrote this column in the Sunday Times. He took offence. I think he got a bit rattled, went over the top. But I know, Robbie, you're very much on my side.
No, listen,
but you find it difficult.
I'm a friend.
What's amazing about it is you find it difficult to ever challenge Piers Morgan publicly, because I know that deep down you think it's a great column. But now we've put the mics on, you're like, you find it difficult to say.
I can agree with a lot in it, but I also agree. I love watching Piers in the morning. I think holding people to account. He's got his own style. Listen, I love watching him. To be fair though, as well, you're sticking up for all your mates, like Jeremy Hunt and all that. That's what I reckon.
What on earth?
You're sticking up for all your conservative mates.
What if I walked in on this? It seems like a highly charged intellectual debate that is above my intellectual pay grade.
Like,
Roberto,
so Robbie Williams is here.
Have you seen Matthew's got hammered from Piers Morgan? You're not on social, are you? But he's got battered, Robbie.
What? Oh, you're being battered, are you, Matthew?
Robbie, look. First of all, yes. I wrote a column slightly critical of Piers Morgan, how he reduces, complex arguments to ridiculously simple sound bites. He got very annoyed with this column that was basically agreed with by 90% of people who have read it. And then he started attacking me for playing table tennis. I used to be a table tennis player many years ago. He started attacking me for playing table tennis. And I've met one Conservative Member of Parliament called Jeremy Hunt. And he started attacking me for knowing him. And Robbie's loving this because he's completely scared of Piers Morgan. And now, before we come on air, he's like, "Yeah, Piers, yeah, you did well there, Matthew." As soon as the microphone's on, he's, "Yeah, Piers Morgan, great bloke, wonderful."
Robbie, I'm not Rob. Rob, don't listen to him, Rob.
Yeah, but the thing is, that's his job.
It strikes me, one thing that I thought was, in your late teens and early 20s, you were famous enough for somebody like Morgan, Piers Morgan, to attack you and for him to feel that he's doing his job to sell newspapers. Now you're at a position where you're emotionally mature enough to understand he's doing his job and so on and so forth. But back then, that must have been horrific for somebody of that age.
It's such a visceral, inbuilt DNA thing that we have as islanders in Britain, where we try and decapitate anything that's successful, and especially celebrities. I heard this once, which describes it the best, that in America, if they see the guy in the big house on the big hill, they stand there and they go, one day I'm going to be that guy. In the UK, we stand there and we go, one day I'm going to get that. And so it was with the tabloids. My particular brand of entertainment and my particular brand of pop music, also at the same time, to my peers, wasn't and isn't deemed worthy. And I read the same magazines and watched the same television shows and wanted to be in the same tribe that most people my age found themselves. But because of what I did and because of my output, what I created and how I presented myself, it was also deemed in certain there was a culture of Robbie Williams is not cool, Robbie Williams isn't very good, and Robbie Williams is naff, and Robbie Williams is fat, and Robbie Williams, we all agree, is awful. Apart from the 3 million people that bought my album each time it came out in the UK, apart from those people. And I would say that every time I turned on the TV to watch the TV programs of the time that had my generation on them, there was people that were being sniffy about me, were being hateful about me, and that mixed with the tabloids being hateful about me too, about every facet of my personality, of my character, my nose, my eyebrows, my elbows, was just wrong and grotesque. And as a 46-year-old with 3 kids, I have more perspective on it. I'm not saying that I'm healed from all of that, because I'm not. But at the time, it was unbearable. And that was, 20 years ago. And 20 years ago, I just left the country because I couldn't turn anything on or pick anything up without it saying, this is a bad person doing a bad thing, presenting himself in a bad way. And I am far too sensitive to do the job that I found myself doing, and that goes for Piers Morgan. Some of these people become poster childs for different parts of different industries. In music, it was Noel Gallagher. It wasn't just Liam Gallagher and Noel Gallagher that were being, like Liam said that I should be hung, and famously Noel said, the fat dancer from Take That, I could talk to you 2 hours about why he's shit, so, but I can name you because they go in my rucksack. They go on the list of people that I remember every single syllable of everything they've ever said about me.
There's parallels, Rob, with me. Whereas, if we're talking football, you're World Cup winner, Champions League winner, world class. If we're talking your career as in football, won everything there is to win. My career was, like yours, hard work. You got there through hard work and talent as well. Mine was hard work and a little bit of talent, and I got the most of what I did. So when John Terry said about me in a social media, Rob, they're talking about it, I was in a hotel room just before the Champions League game and I had a little sleep and my phone buzzed and I thought, well, what's that? And my social media was going mad, 1,000 mentions, 2,000 mentions. And John Terry must have done a press conference before a Champions League game. And as a pundit, I criticised him. I think Chelsea got beat by Man City 3-0, Rob. And John Terry, who's been a magnificent player, incredible talent, won everything there is to win, had a go at me by saying, well, I don't take his opinion, he hasn't had a very good career or something along those lines. And then everybody was saying, John Terry hammers Savage. And I took that to heart. And I was then trying to judge my career. Have I been successful? You know, when you've got somebody who's won everything having a go at me, saying my opinion doesn't count because I've won nothing or didn't play in the Champions League or didn't go to a major tournament. And that, still to this day, if I say something stupid, which is quite a lot, people will play that clip. And I think personally I was successful because there's so many people who want to be a footballer, yet only 1% of people are. So I can understand where you're coming from. Now I still think about John Terry in every time I say something. Am I worthy to be doing what I'm doing? You understand what I mean, Rob?
Yeah, but sorry, mate. You wandered into this part of your career already with that being a sensitivity, because before John Terry ever mentioned that, you mentioned it to me. Isn't it funny and remarkable and interesting what a sentence of a few words can do to your whole life and your whole way of viewing the world? You know, but I would suggest to you too, because I've followed your career very closely and I also know stories about you from other footballers. You've had that insecurity in a very bullying culture, and I would suggest that you've been bullied and been a bully too, because that's all that you can do in your position. I'm not saying that you're any different than any other footballer. I'm just saying that all the way through your career, I'm guessing that has been either at the back of your mind or at the forefront of your mind, because you're incredibly competitive and you're in a results-based business. And for me, I'm in an opinion-based business. You're actually in a results-based business where you can see it on paper. Do you know what I mean? How far you've run, how many tackles you've made, the free kick that you scored or you didn't score, the interceptions that you made, the breaking up of play. It's all there written down. My game is all about whether you like it or not.
But this thing that you said about tall poppy syndrome, you said it's in the DNA. I know exactly what you mean. Whenever you see a celebrity being talked about positively, being acclaimed, you know that they're going to have it cut from underneath them at some time in the future. They're going to crash and burn. But do you not think that in football as well, Robbie, is often even worse if you come from a working class background? Like, how dare they be in the big house on the hill? If they're from a posh background and it's somebody doing, you know, David Cameron becomes Prime Minister, that's absolutely okay. He's from Eton, he's got a posh accent. Aren't we expecting these people to be successful because they have those gilded lives? Footballers, they get told it's a disgrace that they earn a lot of money. You don't hear that said about Kenneth Branagh, who's an actor. Footballers, I think, have a particular problem, and it may be the same for you, Robbie Williams, because you're from a working class background, you've got that big house. How can somebody who doesn't speak in a posh accent have that amount of wealth? I think that's deeply in the British psyche because we're so class conscious.
Well, I'll speak to that, and I'll just jump back to what I was thinking about, Rob, is that regards to your credibility when you are commentating. Okay, so the difference between you and John Terry for the rest of the entire planet is paper thin. Do you see what I'm saying? For me, as somebody that watches the TV and listens to punditry and loves football, it's paper thin. For John Terry, in that particular moment, he was bothered about what you said. He was bothered about what you said. It stuck in his craw. It was a problem for him, and he had to address it by putting you down. Simple. Now, the other thing, you can say that about Cameron, but I'll tell you this. James Blunt, pillared, hated, despised, has had to work out a way, like karate, to make the power coming at him work in his favor. Belittle himself, joke about himself, be mean about himself, join in with. I don't know if necessarily it is a class thing, to be honest with you, because, you know, you have plenty of hatchet pieces about it only being upper class people that can get acting jobs, or how easy James Blunt had it to get where he got to. I don't believe that. You know, I don't believe that understanding of who they are as people. You know, everybody has a journey. Everybody finds it immensely difficult. Also, for the case of James Blunt, he's actually a war hero.
Yeah.
You know, the stuff that he did for our country, albeit as a captain that we might get sniffy at, he still did it. Do you know what I mean? And I've got a lot of respect for him. I went to see him a few times, really enjoyed his gigs. But it's kind of the opposite of what you're saying. I just think that all success in the UK, instead of people going, I'm going to try and do that and better it, people think, I'm going to bring it down. Now, I'm not saying either that I would think or be any other way if I hadn't have been as lucky as I've been. You know, I'm not saying that as a 46-year-old that's still be in Staffordshire, would I like and enjoy Robbie Williams, or would I like and enjoy knocking Robbie Williams? I'd probably like and enjoy knocking Robbie Williams more than I'd like Robbie Williams. If you see what I'm saying, I'm not saying that I'm above it. I'm not being a hypocrite.
I think that's extreme.
In this particular time, I'll be hypocritical later on, but not now.
Rob, when you say you are lucky, when you're saying you're lucky, but your luck come because, and tell me if I'm wrong, because you worked so hard to get that big house. Surely you've worked as hard as anyone to get that big house.
Rob, I was lucky, and then I worked my arse off. And you know how like successful footballers have a little bit of venom in them and can go over the top of the ball, you know, and that actually makes them the players that they are. Just that extra bit of anger or aggression, or coming from a place of insecurity. Therefore, if you get to the ball before I do, I'm not playing next week, right? Out of a place of insecurity and vulnerability and need and want and necessity, I have guided my career to the place that it is now. You know, it's like I do and can go over the top of the ball and take the player too. But that being said, I try to be kind at the same time. But it's my ball. I'm having it. And that's why, if I think about me and Gary Barlow, we fell out because we're both the same people. You know, when I was in Take That, it was his ball. And he wasn't sharing it, you know. And that was at that point in our career, in that point in our lives, when you are young bucks jostling for position, we fell out because we're both very, very similar.
Do you know that thing that you were mentioning about kind of jiu-jitsu? You take that negative energy coming at you and you direct it into a positive force that can give you momentum. And I love what you said about James Blunt. He joins in the parodying of himself, doesn't he? It's amazing the way he's kind of almost colluded in what his enemies are saying to promote himself. But when I think about it, Robbie, I look at you from the outside and you look psychologically invulnerable. When you're on the stage, there's kind of a power and a charisma. And if obviously we've never met before, and you're probably regretting having met me today. But do you find in any way that people, because they see this kind of Superman on stage, they assume that you have got a mind like granite, and that all of this kind of criticism has no impact whatsoever?
I think that I must have done a really good job at projecting an image, once again, out of necessity. Like, I'll say, for example, that, I'm kind of Gary Neville, but I'm pretending that I'm Cristiano Ronaldo. and I'm not knocking Gary Neville at all, because he's an incredible player that's done the best that he can do, squeezed every bit of the orange juice out of the orange juice that he can with the talent that he's been given. And I admire him and I respect him, so I'm not knocking it. I think that's why I wind people up, is because they know I'm Gary Neville, but I'm fronting like I'm Ronaldo.
but why? Listen, I agree with you, Gary Neville. When you're on that stage, Rob, you are the best. Listen, I'm not just saying it, best entertainer ever. I've been to your concerts, and you've been to my house, and you are the best entertainer. You are one of the most popular bands in the world. Matthew's read through your CV. Number one albums all over, every time you write one. Surely you would, as a persona, you are Cristiano Ronaldo. You are like Cristiano Ronaldo in that industry. For us, for the neutrals, for the ones who watch you on that stage.
I think that you must know about charlatan syndrome, though, Rob.
Matthew will, I will.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you know, I'm so glad you use the phrase, sometimes imposter syndrome, Robbie, that you know inside that you're not perfect and you project an image of perfection and you're just wondering when people are going to find you out. And it afflicts all sorts of incredibly successful people. Robbie, I think that's a wonderful way you put it. Brilliant.
That is the bane and the power source behind my existence. It's like I'm constantly proving me and everybody else wrong, but mainly me. And the charlatan syndrome lessens as I get older and I get more comfortable in my skin and I become more content as a person. But I became famous when I was 16, so I wasn't fully formed. The information that was going into the computer broke the computer. And, unfortunately, I had to spend the second 20 years of my life sorting out the first 20 years. And I had a beautiful puzzle, but a very damaging puzzle to figure out. And once again, incredibly lucky and fortunate. But nevertheless, everything that happened to me through those formative years and then the next 10 just broke the computer, completely broke the computer, mixed with incredible sensitivity, huge vulnerability, but with the ability to be able to pretend that I think I'm ace.
So this idea that in your formative years, the fame came so quick, there's a breakdown in the circuitry, and then you needed to repair it. That's a really beautiful image, and it makes a lot of sense. The thing that I'm puzzled by is that during that second 20 years, when you in your own mind are only a Gary Neville, and when even the Gary Neville figure has got real problems with its internal operation, you're writing, performing at a level that is indisputably world class. People don't buy records unless it moves them, unless it touches them in some deep way. You know, Angels is still the most popular song that people want at their funerals because it's deep. There's a poignancy there in the lyrics and the melody. So how are you, you're saying I was broken, and at the same time the parallel narrative is you're doing quite extraordinary stuff. How do you reconcile those two things?
Well, I'll ask Rob. Rob, how do you rate yourself as a footballer?
Me?
Yeah.
In what? Against who?
Your own estimation of who you think you should be.
I would say I would give myself a 9 out of 10. I think that even a 10 out of 10 because I got the best every single ounce of my ability by working hard. So I would say, if I look, would I change my career? Would I go back and change anything? Probably not, because I maximised.
Okay, let me ask you another question.
Yeah.
So why did John Terry's words hurt you so much?
Great question.
Because my insecurities, as you know, because I want to be liked. I want to be liked. I wanted to be like at football. And I think when that in the world we live in now, that social media is a huge part of our lives, and I knew that would be every time I said something, that would be played out. It was like when I was on the World Cup panel. I was doing a game with Thierry Henry, Clarence Seedorf and Gary Lineker. And as a James Blunt kind of scenario, I join in with the jokes. I try and be the life and soul of the party, and on air I'm laughing and joking, I'm retweeting, ha ha, but deep down when I go home, it really hurts. Like, so for your knowledge, Rob, what they've done was they've took a freeze frame, and on social media they wrote every single award, the Thierry Henry one down his top, every award that Clarence Seedorf had won. It was like World Cups, Champions League, Premier Leagues, whatever league they were in, and the same with Gary. And mine, it just had League Cup winner, and it was like, I am not worthy to be on the panel with those because of my football career, because I've not won nothing. So as much as I rate myself as a 9 or even a 10 out of 10 because I maximise my ability, I believe I'm not worthy to be in their vicinity because that's what people say about me.
I understand that, which is why I believe that there's a big portion of you that does give yourself 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10. But I also think in the shadow, there's somebody that gives yourself 2 out of 10.
Yeah.
You know, I think that the duality of that and which wolf you feed influences your day. Which wolf it is, whether I'm the 10 out of 10 or the 2 out of 10. You know, but here's the thing too. What I think about your career since football, I would say Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher have carved themselves out a really good thing. They're really good at it. Out of all the footballers that have left football, there's you 3. There's you and them 2 that have actually risen above the pack to make a name for themselves and leave an imprint on the industry that they find themselves in right now. And there are hundreds of footballers retiring each year that haven't made the same impact that you have. Now,
Lineker?
if you
Lineker?
Oh yeah, Lineker. We'll have Lineker. That's a given. But there's going to be thousands within 10 years. They haven't, most of them, and will not reach the same level that you've now reached in your new chosen career, in your new industry. So yeah, Thierry Henry has got all of those things that have been written about, but Thierry Henry hasn't chosen to do your job, and I don't think he can. He can do a great job of commentary, and you listen to him, and it's interesting, and it's thoughtful, and it's incisive, and all of that business, but he doesn't have a Robbie Savage personality. Your personality puts bums on seats, puts ears on podcasts, moves people. So,
But so does yours, though. Your personality and your talent and your songwriting, that does exactly the same as you alluded to. The 3 million people that bought your album. It's every album. So it's like I'm not saying you're the same as me, because I know we're both insecure people. But what you do then, it's not a mirror of me. I'm not saying that, but in a similar kind of way. No?
Here's the thing. Whatever you say and however you psychoanalyze it, it's gone in as it being fact that I'm not very good. But listen, no matter all the evidence, my bank account, the records that I've sold, the accolades, all of the above, the power of that, the mountain of things that I've achieved still hasn't removed this deficit that I feel as a human being. That being said,
right.
As a 46-year-old, I'm very content and I'm very happy and I'm not miserable and I'm not depressed. I have 4 beautiful children, an incredible wife, an outstanding relationship, and the opportunity to do anything that I so wish. And there's so many things. I'm so ambitious. That being said, I still don't think I'm any good. And it might be confusing and it might make people scratch their heads. It's just how it is today. Maybe when I'm 56, it might change. I doubt it. But it is and will always be the driving force behind absolutely everything I do. Interview on the TV, I want to boss it. I want to be a midfield general. I go and do a interview on the radio. I'm going to say and do something. I'm going to fill a space and it's going to be big, or it's going to be quirky, or it's going to be eccentric, or there is going to be personality, and I'm going to impose myself on the energy of this thing, whatever it is. If I go on Graham Norton, there's 4 other people sat on the couch. I want to win. Whatever winning is, I want to win it. And so it is with every interview I do, this podcast that I do, absolutely everything. I'm competitive as
Where does it come from, Robbie? Where do you think that emerged from? How young when you began to detect that competitive instinct inside?
Well, you can break down why I am how I am to my parents. That is the general consensus about psychology. So whatever it was that my mom did or didn't, or whatever it was that my father did or didn't, is the whole sum of why I am who I am today. Now, my dad was on New Faces in 1974. He's a comedian, and he won his round and he got to the final, and he's my hero, and he's incredible at his job, but he's really, really laid back to the point where I will go over the top of the ball and I will break a shin. He won't, because he doesn't feel as though he needs to. Why should he? My mother, on the other hand, is an absolute titan. She dragged her life from literally nothing to creating something of real value. We're talking in Staffordshire, from actually, father was a navvy, then he went to came over from Ireland, then he went to war, then he worked down the pits. My mum got herself a loan, worked her arse off, and went from a very economically depressed town in Stoke-on-Trent, opened a shop, made some money, and moved to the posher town. It's all relative. And opened another shop, and then another shop, and then another shop. Now, I'm both of those people. I am the sort of, if I do say so myself, the charismatic, laid-back guy, but also I'm my mum, where I've got more ambition and more drive than I'll ever be able to satisfy.
So what are you like then, as your 4 beautiful children? Listen, I had an amazing lady, and I watch you on Instagram and your podcast. What kind of dad are you going to be then? Are you going to be more like your father or your mother, or a bit of both?
Well, if we break down what happens to the family and people, it is suggested that a broken home leads to all kinds of problems in later life. That is what is suggested, you know. And if you read about it, I'm textbook. Impulse control, bad. Drugs, drink, addiction, seeking darkness, you know. With my children, you know, my mum and dad split up when I was 3, and that led to its own problems and difficulties with trying to be the right person for both parents and not understanding. And of course you wouldn't because you're young. And how do you do this? And, oh yeah, no, it's okay because I've got 2 best friends. And that's what you tell them so they don't feel bad about it. And then you've got all of this stuff that's going on. And I think with my kids, so far, so good. They have a very solid home. They have a very loving home. Me and Ida get on really, really well. We're in our 15th year, and I love her more than the day that we got married. Wow. She makes me laugh. I trust her. She is so clever. She's unbelievably clever. She speaks 3 languages. She finished top of her class at Harvard Westlake, and then she could have gone to whatever college that she wanted to go to. She went to Columbia, finished top of that class too.
What was she studying?
Law. She was going to be a lawyer.
Wow.
So what I'm saying is, you know, we have safety because I want to be a good boy that does good things, that is monogamous, that is a good role model to me because of the higher person that I think I can be. You know, this. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's this version of myself that I believe that I can be. So far today, I've been that guy. You know, I have been that guy that doesn't put his head in the lion's mouth, that doesn't cause trouble for myself outside of my relationship. Therefore, those 4 children today have a good role model and a good father. And, and safety. You know, they have so much safety and so much love that if it is true about psychoanalysis and everything coming from the parents, we're going to get loads of things wrong. But I believe that safety, that consistency, and that love will give them a concrete start in life.
You know, it's amazing listening to what you said about all of that, but your mum, an entrepreneur, started the shop, upwardly mobile, incredibly driven, imputed that into you. I'm wondering, Robbie, there was obviously a sliding doors moment when you had the opportunity to secure a passage into a boy band. Do you remember that day? did your mum drive you there? Did she mentor you? I mean, presumably you had to get up in front of a group of people and sing on that day and demonstrate you had something, some X factor that they were going to say, yeah, we want this. I'd love to know what was going through your mind on that day, because that changed everything for you, right? It put your life on a completely different trajectory.
Simon Mayo, I believe, was on Radio 1, and he was talking about this guy that was putting a boy band together to rival the New Kids on the Block. And my mum woke me up. I was still at school. And she said, there's a guy in Manchester, and he's putting together this band. We should send your CV off. So we put together a CV and lied on it. And, and then I went up to see this guy, Nigel Martin Smith, and there was a preliminary sort of meeting before the audition, and he says that I came in, talked to him, and he wasn't interested at all. But as I left, I turned to him, looked at him, and winked and walked out of the door. Now, if it wasn't for that wink, the whole of this life that I'm having now probably wouldn't been achieved.
He saw a bit of mischief in that wink. He saw something in your character.
And I just felt awkward because he was looking at me and I was looking at him and I didn't know what to do, so I just winked. And I think that's a metaphor for the whole of my career. I don't know what I'm doing, so I might as well do this.
Wow. Can I ask you, did you... I mean, you've talked brilliantly about this imposter syndrome. What did you call it? Charlatan syndrome. Do you ever have... When you get up on stage, Robbie, after all these years, are you nervous? Do you have to inhabit a different personality to get on the stage and to project that?
This is how bad my self-hatred was. I'm going to swear here. You might have to bleep this out. I was on stage in the early bits of my career as it was just becoming stratospheric. In my head, I actually thought these words: what have you come to see this for? That's how much I hated myself at the time. Wow. So I had incredible stage fright, absolutely paralyzing stage fright. And what I now know, which I didn't and I couldn't when I was younger, is that I'm bigger than the fear. The fear back then was so pervasive and so encompassing that I just fell into a bottomless pit of fear, worry, high anxiety, and self-hatred. Now, I still am that person, but what I do know with experience is that I'm incredibly courageous and I'm actually bigger than the fear. Now, weirdly, when I do gigs, Robbie Williams is like a construct, is like a superhero that my name's Robert Williams. It's not Robbie Williams. Robbie Williams gets on stage. Robert Williams raises his kids. And these days, what happens is, I did Hyde Park last year. And I'm like, I get on stage and I never know if he's going to turn up or I'm going to have to do it myself. And at Hyde Park, for the first 4 songs in front of 70,000, 80,000 people, Robbie didn't turn up and I had to do it. And it terrifying. and then all of a sudden, he appears. I know that might sound to the outside world as, weird and schizophrenic, and maybe it is. But a lot of the time, I turn up and so does he. Some of the time, I turn up and he's still in the dressing room having a fag.
Wow. It's a bit like on a football pitch. People who don't know me, Rob, off the pitch, I'm quiet. I don't go out. I'm not a drinker. I don't go night clubbing. But that persona of me, because of my blonde hair and because of the way I look, people thought he'll be going out, he'll be going drinking, he'll be doing that. No, I went home, I prepared right, I was a proper professional on the pitch. I wanted to win so bad, and I was a pantomime villain. I would play to the crowd. I would love the limelight. I would love people booing me. But as soon as that game finished, win, lose or draw, I'd go home, and people thought he'd be going out, you know, all around, all to nightclubs, to this, to that. No, I'd be watching the TV.
Is something I'll say about you and your career as well, is that we, as a public watching football, are actually clamouring for personality. We need that personality, and we berate 99% of footballers that haven't got that personality. When somebody turns up with personality, we try to kill them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened with your career, which is why I got hold of you when you retired. When you retired, I tweeted or got hold of you and said, thank you very much for your career, because I am a pure football fan. But also, I'm a fan of entertainment, and I am a fan of personality. Like Prince Nazim Hamed.
Yeah.
Hated. I fucking loved him. I just thought he was the best thing since Muhammad Ali. Electrifying, provocative, those stage entrances. Those kind of people speak to me. And they speak to everybody else. And I think that people, people think that I've got a big head. And I think that people probably think you've got a big head as well, Rob. Was that what people think?
Yeah, probably, yeah. Probably.
Do you know what? I think people are really stupid. That they can't see the person. It's either that I think that they're stupid, or I don't know what a good job I've done convincing people that I'm impenetrable. Because I do know, especially when I was younger, it doesn't happen so much now, but people tried to get a jab in with me when they meet me before I jab them. Because they think that's what I'm going to do. Little do they know, I'm socially inept, and I don't know how to talk to them, and I'm scared of interaction. And that was my truth. But I always knew that what was happening was like, oh, he's putting me down because he thinks that I'm the Robbie Williams that does the Let Me Entertain You song. But I'm actually more the Robbie Williams that does Angels 20 times a night than I am the guy that comes on and struts. That's just... I saw Tim Curry in the Rocky Horror Show and went, that's nice. I want to be that. So I'm just being Frankenfurter when I get on stage. That's all I'm being. I'm sort of mirroring people that I adored when I was growing up, and they've amalgamated to be the performer that I am.
When you get on stage as Robert and you're hoping Robbie's going to turn up and he's going to take over, he's going to take command, he's going to grab it by the scruff of the neck. Afterwards, is there a massive come down? Like, you've got this adrenaline high, you're strutting your stuff, you're singing to the heavens. Then you suddenly come off and Robert Williams comes along, and you have to sit in a house with kids, and it's not got the high and the rush. Is that a massive come down, or does it feel wonderful? I'm back to my more comforting self.
Okay, for example, I have to do 4 gigs a week, right? Footballers play a couple of games a week, Rob.
Yeah.
And after you finish the game, can you sleep?
No.
Okay. Now, on tour, what happens is you just don't sleep. And the basis for me being content is really simple. Sleep, water, and exercise. Stay hydrated, exercise, and sleep. And if any of those three are out of whack, I'm a cabbage. And what happens with tours is it's a build-up and a build-up and a build-up. 3 weeks into a tour, you're just a gibbering mess that can't function, that can't think, that's confused because of sleep deprivation. If a tour was a week, it would be the best week of my life. It just so happens that these tours can go on to 5 or 6 months. There's a reason why people end up in rehab or ER after tours, you know. And sleep deprivation is a massive one of those.
And it's because you're so high when you come off the stage. You can't kind of get into a place where you can relax at that point.
You're just taken to fight or flight. You're just taken... And when the combination works in your favor, it's spiritual and it's religious and it's just incredible. Those moments are actually few and far between. What you're actually dealing with most of the time is not having had enough sleep and wanting to give the people their money's worth, and also wanting to prove to yourself that you can perform to that standard every time that you get on stage.
I've never thought about that before, Rob, when you've just made that analogy there, Matthew, when after the game on a Saturday, I wouldn't go to bed till 3:30 in the morning because I could not sleep because of that adrenaline. And then on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, the same again. And when you Rob's put it like that, it is quite singing every night. You can understand, Matthew. Listen, when you won the Reading ping pong championships, Matthew, you didn't sleep for the week.
I was so pumped. It wasn't Matthew's side who won that. It was Mateus' side, the ping pong fiend with the backhand smash that no one could get back. No, I completely relate to what both of you are saying. But the thing for me is, if that is what touring feels like, if that's how debilitating it is, the excitement after a week, it must just be almost like purgatory out there.
Well, then you know, I suppose the question is, why do you do it? And you know, I can honestly say that for the longest time in my career, the financial rewards of what I was doing didn't affect me or interest me in any shape or form. I just thought, I've been given Willy Wonka's golden ticket. I'm running the factory. I better run the factory to the best of my ability. I didn't even know how much I was worth, how much money I'd got, until I was about 40, where I was just like, I better look at this thing. There's stuff happening. So it is still now the question, why do you do it? You know, it's self-lacerating, you know. Do you know what it is with me? The financial aspect of it now that I'm a dad, you know, it's like I should know where my money is. I should know how much I've got. I should know how much I'm spending and how much it will cost me to get to the end of my life and leave my family financially secure. So I do. So the financial aspect of touring now becomes relevant. Besides that, though, it pales into insignificance with my want and need and desperation to overcome that monster. You know, it's like I for the whole of my career, I've been trying to figure out a way of taking this opportunity and having it work to my advantage and not be detrimental to my soul. And I think I'll probably be doing that for the rest of my life.
But the other thing that came out, Robbie, is that performing well, it's like core to who you are. It's part of your value system. You want to make sure that the people who come to watch you, even if you're knackered, even if you haven't slept for 3 weeks, you have to deliver for them. Can I just ask you, I'm a writer, I write books. To write music, psychologically, what space do you need to be in? Because performing as a writer, that isn't a performance in a live sense, it's a creative thing, right? It's finding some kind of just explain to me how you get into the right mindset to write music.
It's just being bothered. Bothered to actually do it. At the moment, there's a bank of songs on my computer ready to go. And I would say that there's 65 of them. I wrote 20 songs in 3 weeks.
Wow.
Last year during lockdown.
Wow.
And I'm incredibly impulsive, and I'm an addict. And at the moment, I'm an addict. I'm an arrested addict. And I know that I wake up in the morning and this thing that could actually kill me beams out of my chest. And if I don't feed it what it needs, it will end me, So I've just done 3 hours of art. Before that, I walked 10,000 steps. Yesterday, I played 27 holes of golf. I'm not in the UK. I played 27 holes of golf. Winter greens and in the snow. Couldn't see the ball. But what I'm saying is it's a must that I create, because if I don't create, I'm going to cause havoc. To go back to what I originally said, it's whether I can be asked to do that particular brand of creativity. And when I can, it's all I do, and I am consumed with it to the point of mania. And then when I'm not, I walk away from it and I do something else. But the monster's always going to need to be fed.
And this is visual art you were doing for 3 hours?
Yes.
Wow. Robbie, can I ask you that we'd asked all our guests 3 set questions. Can I do that now?
Yeah.
So one of them, what was the weakest part of your skill set as a performer that you had to work the hardest on to improve?
For the uneducated and for those people that are standing outside of it, because of the way that people talk about the art, they presume that if you write songs, you've been touched by the special unicorn, and it's something that exists outside of you that you're not capable of doing because it's for very special people. I found myself by circumstance and by luck being given the opportunity to have a go at seeing if I could do this thing. Turns out I can. And what I just wanted to do and still want to do is get better at it and better at it and better at it. And by better, the bit that I do in the song is lyrics and melodies. That's what I do. Sometimes I write the music underneath. Most of the time, I don't. Now, I want to be more poetic. I want to paint better pictures. I want to be more verbose, use more interesting words, reach a different part of the soul, reach a different part of the heart. But most of all, impress myself. Now, I don't know where I'm at with that.
Does it all come out in one thing? Is it kind of when a music... Is it fully formed in your mind? Or do you write a bit and then you have to tweak it and then it's kind of a painstaking process of trial and error? Or is it like a vision that, bang, it's there?
Most of the time, it's all whittling, I would say that the melody itself, as it comes out, the first thing that I sing is usually the best. It's usually, I don't deviate from that. The melody is what it is, and it's very instinctive, and it's a tap that is turned on, and it's never been turned off. It just exists. When I go to that function, it's there. With words, I whittle and whittle and whittle and overthink. And most of the time, the first thing that I came up with was the best thing anyway. yeah, it's just something that exists that feels like it's a font or a fountain that I can go to where the tap is always on.
Wow, fascinating.
So today, Rob, obviously, when we recorded this, Frank Lampard has been sacked by Chelsea. So, listen, I know, I'm sure you're a friend of Frank's. And going back to the early conversation when I was saying about how insecure I was, and my career is in facts, yours was if somebody likes you or doesn't. In the football industry, it's a results-driven business. But sometimes, and I believe that Frank at Chelsea qualified for the Champions League, got in the Champions League last season by losing his best player, didn't buy a player last year and got in the Champions League. This year, the club has spent in the region of 250 million pounds. Frank, it seems like, had to have an instant impact with those players and not given the time to see those players come to fruition. Can you relate at all to a music career when if somebody likes you or doesn't, you understand what I'm trying to say? Whereas in football, sometimes you do not get the time. And I can't compute that in my head when we believe Frank was doing a good job for those 18 months and now hasn't got the time to see out what he started. You understand what I mean? Whereas in your career, the longevity, is it easy to have a longevity in music or football?
Is it easy to have longevity? I think the careers are basically the same, with the same sort of limited time space to achieve what you need to achieve. But the difference is that, I might be Gary Neville, but I still won the treble at one point. Now, if I could coast on that for the rest of my musical career, people want to see and hear me win the treble again by singing Angels or doing Let Me Entertain You because of nostalgia, how it made them feel then and how it makes them feel now. So, but the career of a pop star, sort of, where you are fully functioning, highly tuned athlete, by the time you're 38, you realize that the oxygen that you need for your career is being slowly eroded because you get taken off the radio and placed into old people's radio.
Right.
Now, old people's radio, albeit my favorite radio that still play me and I'm incredibly grateful to be on there, doesn't shift units. It doesn't make people go out and buy records. It just doesn't happen. And, and I think it's kind of like 36, 37. And then it's up to you, it's up to me, what I create and how I create it from then on in, and what shape I make it. I've got so many ideas and projects that I want to get up and on the road. It's unbelievable. I'm more ambitious than I've ever been. With Frank, I don't think there is direct parallels to anything that I could say about my career, but I will say this about, business isn't sentimental. The business model that Chelsea has been the same for all the previous managers before. It's just the way that they go about things. If you're lucky, you get to manage Manchester United and maybe they'll give you an extra season than they would somebody else, other than if you're the ex-Everton manager, what's his name? West
David
Ham.
Moyes.
Unless you're Moyes, where you got 8 months and then you were out the door. There's no sentiment in business.
My point was there, though, Rob, is that Ollie, as you love your football, there'd be times on the radio show I do, so many fans, Ollie out, Ollie out, Ollie out, Real saying Ollie at the wheel, and then people hammering Real. Long jet there by having faith and thinking, right, the bigger picture, he is a legend of this football club. We will give him time, like Fergie did, and then The fruits now, top of the league, when nobody would have ever thought. So what I'm saying is, in business, at times, could you not look at the bigger picture with a legend at a football club who has delivered last season, and in these unprecedented times when, Rob, you watch football, Liverpool losing 7-2 Aston Villa, Spurs going to Manchester United and winning 6-1. Frank, 2 or 3 wins, they could be right back up there. So I can't understand the mentality where now, as you say, the Chelsea model, Rob, that's what they've done all through the years. People win trophies, they go. So I just think, because you are a legend, Frank Lampard is a legend, do you think people like that should be given more time and a bit more patience?
Personally, for me, yeah, absolutely. Just because it's Frank. But who's the new guy? Thomas, what's his name?
Looks like Thomas Tuchel, who was at Borussia Dortmund and
PSG. You know, but if it was Thomas that was being sacked today, we wouldn't have the same sentiment. It's just because it's Frank that we're just like, how can you do that to Frank? I love him. Yeah. You probably respect him.
I like him, love him. Yeah, no, I like good guy.
Okay, so I like and love the guy. I just think he's absolutely phenomenal.
Good guy.
And given time, I'm sure that he'd have been able to steer the ship around. But that makes us human and full of sentiment. You know, if you are a machine that crunches numbers, that has no empathy, you know, but actually has proper skin in the game because it's your finances. Yeah. That's a different monster completely. The reason why Mr. Abramovich gets to be a billionaire 7, 8, 14 times over is because of the person that he is. He would make a different decision, and today he did.
And by the way, he's pretty ruthless. I mean, I don't want to libel anybody, but if you go back to his early business career, Abramovich, I'll tell you, that guy has a cutting edge. Second question, Robbie.
Can I just say there, Rob, is that why you're a billionaire? Because the person you are.
I'll tell you when I get there.
What's the one thing you haven't got any talent in but wish you had?
I think pound for pound, the amount of golf that I actually play, I'm probably the worst golfer on the planet.
What'd you play off?
12.
You play off 12?
You're not that bad, I've seen. Yeah, he's good. He's
12
good.
is excellent.
Listen,
he's good.
I should.
12 is amazing.
I play it like it's my real job. And let's just say I should be much, much better.
I've seen you hitting. You got the. Have you got it in a house where the simulator? I've seen you on that as well.
I had the simulator. That did. I spent 7 hours in that simulator that day. Yeah, but I should be an awful. Can I ask you the same question then? What's the same question? Because I'm interested. What have you got? No, I can't add or subtract, and I can't spell.
So
Let me ask.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm numerically dyslexic.
Yeah. What do they call that? Dyscalculia.
Yeah. I heard numerically dyslexic and went, oh, it's a thing. I'm that.
Yeah.
I'm not thick.
No, quite a lot of people have that. And in education, making sure that classes can identify young people who have that, and therefore they can still become very good at anything that they put their mind to. It's just they need to be taught in a slightly different way because their brains are wired up slightly differently.
So what's yours? What's yours then?
Me, the thing that I'm not very good at. Stop it, Roberto. I would tell you the thing that really annoys me. Okay, if I have to speak in front of a group of people, I'm fine. If I have to speak on television or radio now, after having done it for a long time, I'm fine. Something I've never had to do in my life until the age of 33, I was a professional table tennis player. Then I went into writing, and now I do occasional broadcasting. But I've never had to go into a meeting. So in a meeting, you're in a room with like 8 people around a table, and there's a formal agenda, and they go through. honestly, I've got to say, I find it really difficult in that situation. And occasionally, I get asked to join a board of directors or to become a non-exec, I still am not comfortable in that because I've not had an opportunity to become comfortable, and I'm always surprised how nervous I am when I have to go into. Does that make any? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. In the same situation, I can't concentrate, so I turn my eyes on at the front and look as though I'm listening and I'm nodding, but at the back I've gone to sleep. But that's a very different thing than what you're actually saying. I don't have the same thing, but I can understand how you would derive anxiety from that situation. What's yours, Rob?
Mine's quite similar. I think that comes from the insecurity, because in the changing room, Rob, I was life and soul. At Manchester United as a youngster, in the initiation ceremony, in front of first team players, you had to be who you were, and you had to go along with it, and that made me the person I am in terms of my character, I believe. And then in my football career, captain teams, I would try and be the person in that dressing room who would influence things. As you say, when you said earlier, you have been bullied and were a bully, and that resonated quite a lot. I've never said I'm a bully, and I'm not a bully. And in the change room environment, when you're trying to integrate new players into the squad, there will be a mentality of, do this, and it can come across as bullying, even though in my mind and the change room, it's not. It's in that environment, and in front of people in the change room, I would be fine. But then people ask me to do after dinner speaking. People want me to speak in front of people. And I know I do it as Matthew on the radio and on the TV when there's only a handful of people there. But if somebody said to me now, go and speak in front of 30 ex-players or 50 people and tell stories about your career or your life, I couldn't do it. Doing Strictly, it was a big thing for me where I was out of my comfort zone and I learned to get better at it. But I had a partner and I could rely on Ola. But if I was to go and speak I couldn't do it, because I think in my mindset, Rob, would be people saying to, well, what's he doing there? He didn't win anything. And again, it comes back to those old insecurities, why they're here to listen to me. And I can't do it. Do you understand what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I made a career out of that and did it regardless.
So,
do you know what I mean?
It's when you said before, Rob, when you said before that you and Gary were competitive, but with your insecurities and the complex nature, when you were in the band, you had other people to rely on, and you could maybe hide a little bit, if that's the word. So when you went on your own, surely that would have been harder, because when you're on that stage, you've got nobody to look round to, and it's you.
Oh no, you're incredibly vulnerable, and you're at the tip of the spear. And when I rejoined Take That, it was the most pleasurable tour I've ever done, because I could actually sit back and have a look at the audience. I don't get to look at the audience. I'm performing for them. I don't get to feel what it's actually like to be there, because I'm always 5 seconds in front of myself in my mind about what I'm doing next. I'm never in the moment. Sometimes I do get to be in the moment, and it just is incredible. Few and far between. When I'm in Take That, I get to look at the audience and see what we've achieved. And feel what it feels like to be a pop star on the stage being adored.
Hey, Rob, listen, before Matthew's last question, because listen, we've got an hour and 30, listen, we could sit here for 7 hours, and like in a golf simulator. But before Matthew's last question, Where my insecurities are, listen, you mentioned the Gary Neville Cristiano thing. Where my insecurities are is because I never reached the top of my profession. So I think my insecurity can be, and if you ask thousands of people out there, they won't know me from my footballing career. Yeah? You have reached that top, have done everything there is to do in your chosen field, like Gary Neville did, like Cristiano Ronaldo has, like Jamie Carragher won 9 trophies with Liverpool. So they can.
Here's the thing though, Rob, I totally understand what you're saying, and I'll cut you off here and I'll tell you this. Okay, so say for example you did play for United, or you did get to Everton or Liverpool or wherever. Your personality is such that you would have picked something else to be insecure about.
Exactly.
You were just finding that thing to be insecure about because it makes sense to you and it's real. But you have the makeup and the psychology of somebody that will be seeking that place of insecurity and not being good enough and not being sure of yourself, whether you've reached there or not. And I can speak on that with a surety because I'm the same person. None of this is real. None of this happened. None of this is actually concrete. None of this makes sense. We've just got this thing like a rabid wolf that needs evidence to bolster the fact about why we don't like ourselves. And you would have picked something else, and let that be the wind at your sails for the rest of your life. If it's going to cause you detriment, cause you mental harm, let that also create a castle and a moat for you and your family that you're protected in. And that's what I do with mine. It's like I'm creating a castle, literal moat. I'm protecting my family and I'm battening down the hatches from the world and from my own poisonous head.
And Rob, that thing that it's in your character, there are prime ministers who feel that they're failures. Rock stars. That's something internal to you. There's no external validation that will ever convince somebody with that insecurity that they've achieved everything that was possible in life. It's absolutely spot on. By the way, can I ask you go on, Robbie, you were going to say something.
I was just about to say, and that's okay.
That's okay.
Whereas before it wasn't okay. It was the bane of my existence. Now it's just okay. I live with it. It lives in the room next to me. It'll always be in the house that I'm in, but it doesn't get to drive the car. It's not the adult that's driving the car. It's like I'm driving the car and it can sit in the back seat. It's always going to be in the car with me, though.
What's the best piece of advice anyone has ever given you, and who said it?
Do you know, I think the best piece of advice that I've derived from myself, and it's been the most important understanding of my career, that you get terrified because you're not confident. You're not really confident. And you're searching and trying to attain this mythical existence of self-assurance and confidence. Now, what I've realized is, and it just for me, it's been life-changing, is that confidence is probably never going to come, but you're courageous as and that's been a bit of self-philosophy that's given me so much. It's like, I'm bigger than the fear. I can be proud of myself for feeling this way and still overcoming all of those demons that feel so big. So that's, in short, you might never be confident, but you're courageous. And the trick is, and the secret is, every person on the planet is, so it's not unobtainable being courageous.
It's I think that's just a beautiful way to end. You look, Robbie Williams, it's just been an absolute joy to chat. And thanks for just the candour and authenticity. Robbie, savage as ever. Brilliant. And thank you everyone for listening. Please remember to rate and review us wherever you get your podcasts. We'd appreciate that. Do spread the word. We'll be back next week. But for now, from all of us, goodbye.